Hi, I'm Cinnamon Cooney, I'm your art Sherpa, and today I'm going to show you how at home with just a few simple materials you can create an amazing, rich, aged copper patina on your canvas. Something that looks like really old metal with just paint. So get your paint, get your brushes, and some sea sponges, and come back and meet me at Diesel right now. And I'm going to show you how easy this method actually is. Come on, let's go. So let's look at our materials really quick. I have an 11 by 14 canvas board. You of course could do this technique on any size canvas that you like. This is pre-gessoed, ready to paint. You don't need to do another thing to it. Let's look at the paint colors we're going to be using today to get this effect. I have several paint colors that I would typically use in this type of patina for steampunk or aging or creating a weathered metal effect. I also have liquid acrylic glazing liquid gloss, and I have natural sea sponges. These are going to be really important to what I'm doing. The colors I put out are burnt umber. This is a very transparent color. I like it a lot. Phthalo blue, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, phthalo green, cad yellow medium, and this very special color is iridescent bright gold fine. So this is a gold metallic paint, and this particular one doesn't age out over time, even though it has real metal particles in it. So let's start painting this in. I'm going to show you the brush I'm going to use. I'm pretty excited about this. This is a silver brush cutter. This is a 1414S. This is 2 inches wide. It has a very nice natural bristle. I'm really fond of it. I'm going to kind of prime my brush by just taking the edge of the bristles into the water, not wanting to get it really, really wet because it'll really pull up a lot of moisture. I'm going to pull out my brown and my phthalo blue together, and this is going to create the deep green base that's going to make up my background. You can see how that's just going to go in really nice. And I'm just going to let this brush around. See how this is just brushing around? I'm using the edge of the bristles. I'm just kind of covering the canvas. I'm going to get a little of the brown this time, a little of the blue. Keep working. Just brushing that through. And you can see it's very streaky and has a lot of different tones to it. If you need to, you can get a little of your glazing medium in there to help this carry. It is okay and actually ideal that some areas be darker and some areas be lighter because the canvas is sort of showing through. But you want all the paint to cover it. It's like the transparency of the paint lets the canvas show through. But it's not that spots of canvas like this where these little white dots are showing through. Just keep brushing that in. So I'm just using this nice big brush. It's doing the work for me. If I need to, I'll get a little of my glazing medium. If you didn't have glazing medium, you could use water. Though for these types of techniques, it really is a good idea to get the tools because it makes it a lot easier for you to arrive at the effect. Now, as I'm finishing this up and making sure that the canvas is really covered with this deep, this is a very deep green almost with a brown feeling to it. You're going to want to really wash your big brushes out right away. It's like sponges and brushes. Wash them out sooner than later and put them aside to rest and dry. So once your brush is clean and is laying flat and resting, go ahead and check your canvas and make sure that it's dry. You want it to be dry so that the layer underneath isn't lifting up into the paint that you're sponging. A little trick that I like is to get my sea sponge just slightly damp. I don't want it soaking wet at all. I just want a small amount of moisture on it when I begin to work. And I'm going to dab my sponge into my paint. And then I like to press off over here. You can see how I'm doing that. I test over on my palette just to make sure that I'm getting a nice irregular shape. I'm going to come over to my canvas and I'm going to begin the work of just very lightly tapping down the sponge. These sea sponges are really an amazing painting tool for fine art, for crafting, for whatever you're doing. These are just fantastic, but they're especially wonderful for this type of patina. As I am pulling out this brown paint, I can even sometimes get some blue to create this next layer, like maybe go much more blue. But see how I'm making sure that I'm just dispersing and tapping? What I really, really wouldn't want, what I wouldn't enjoy, is getting too strong of a pigment perspective as I'm creating the layers for this patina, right? So maybe I'll take a little of this blue and I'll get a little of the brown, and I'm mixing that deep green again. So there you go. You can see I'm just working this. And this background works by finding these layers and building them up. Turn my canvas around, turning it around. And what I really got to do, what really gets people is, see there's that bright blue there? That's what would mess me up. I've got to sponge that out. I don't want that to be there in that way, right? Now you can also add glaze. This is a really effective thing to help disperse the pigment around, and will also help you create these levels and layers. These steampunk patinas are a lot of fun to do. I'm going to come get a little green, a little blue. See right there on the sponge. I actually mix on my sponge a little bit like I would mix on my brush. And see, I got a little yellow ochre here. I need a little glaze, I'll get it. And let's work some of this lighter color, see, into what we put there. And I'm sponging around. I might allow the center of my canvas to feel a little bit lighter. And yes, this does absolutely do in a manicure. But I'm looking to, success tip here, not make patterns, not allow, even still here, dotting to form. So I'm going to move my canvas often. And see how that wants to make that dot there? I've got to get rid of that dot. I can't allow that to happen. Let's get some more of this ochre into the sponge. Little glaze there. There, I'm just taking that dot away. That is what gets everybody in this, is when a hard bit of pigment comes in, and as you're tapping it around, it will start stamping a regular pattern. That is going to completely undermine your goal here and frustrate you to no end. So anywhere that you see it happening, that you can work it out. And if you really enjoy makeup, this is really one of those fun techniques to do. It's almost like its own abstract art form. Now, when I've got all that going, let me get some of this just burnt, right? This burnt. See, and I'm very lightly tapping this around. Look at this. Just creating levels and layers. And that's what you're doing here. You're aging this canvas. You're crafting story into it. You're going to turn it whenever you need to get a different angle or perspective. That's another success thing that will help you create the irregular patterns that you're really going to need to have to make this a very successful background. as you're going. So I'm changing it here. You know, I want this sort of rusted space, this rusted metal. Each one is a little different. Each one has a different character. Moving my canvas often. Looking for repeats and stamping those little suckers out. If you have paint allergies or concerns about your hands or manicures, you can always switch with rubber gloves. When doing the stamping with cadmiums, I would highly, highly recommend using Hue. All right. Just keep that going there. That's a nice color. Trying to get a turquoise going. But I'm having that blue pigment. You can see that happening there in the sponge. That's what's happening to me. So I have to look for those if I see it, stamp them out if they come up. Stamp that out. Don't let that be there. Take that away. You know, get a little of this blue, phthalo blue, and burnt sienna. And I'm looking for those little areas that are just running that there. I also don't want too bright a yellow in there. And that's something I'm going to work at, make sure I don't have. If I have bright yellow, it's going to cause me a lot of grief. I'm going to go back into my yellow ochre. Trying to make sure I've mixed out my cadmium that I wouldn't want. Layer, layer, layer. Messy fun, layer, layer. You know, maybe come here and here's another thing I'm doing, tapping down, just making sure it's dispersed in the sponge. Coming here, just knocking that back. It gets a little bright. If it gets a little eager is what I would say it is. My color mix gets a little eager on the canvas and pulls forward too much. You know, can get a little phthalo into that. Glaze can also help knock it back, interestingly enough, so I'm getting the glaze. There we go. Now once that is all set and I'm happy with that, I'm seeing a pattern that's formed. I need to make sure that that gets tapped out. Look for those little bits of repeating pigment. You definitely, definitely don't want that. I'm going to create a highlight color to work into here to brighten the space by adding a little bit of white. So I'm put out my white and now I'm going to mix a little bit of a brighter aqua turquoise that you might see on a copper as it ages over time. This is the patina on the canvas. So definitely I'm going to want some of my phthalo blue and a little of my phthalo green and a titch of my white. Now this patina will always have slightly different to the green or to the blue, but it's going to be a combo of those in this aqua. And now I'm going to come here very carefully, stamp in some of this aqua patina that might be happening on the canvas. Use a very light pressure. Be very light and easy about it. right? So I'm going around being very light and easy. Very light and easy about it. Just coming around, aging that out. Looking for spots that need to be knocked back if they need to. Definitely turn your canvas here and there. This area down here feels like it has gone a little too green, and I know how to fix that. If I didn't have a nice mix on my canvas, there would be like too many, like what you wouldn't want, and I'll show you. See if I can get it going, and then I'll show you how to fix it. I wouldn't want these kind of white dots in it. That wouldn't be working for what I'm trying to do, and that can happen to you if you're new to this. So what I would do is I'd mix that into my sponge and smooth it out, come back over and just very lightly pounce it until it was gone. So I wouldn't want lots of little white spots in this particular piece where I was trying to get that old coppered look, right? Now, if I have any area that got away from me that just doesn't feel like it's metal enough, I can come back with a little maybe burnt sienna and burnt umber. Very lightly, just take this back into this bronzy copper range. Always working it, right? And I think it's like, it's one of those things that it's easy, but it's just tough sometimes to know what to do, when to walk away, when to rest it, and when to push forward and say, nope, we're going to need another layer. So I would highly recommend turning your canvas often. And you're looking for just an incredible depth, which is why all these layers are so important. I'm seeing kind of a thing there and it likes. I'm going to stamp it out. That pattern had happened, and you can see I'm just taking this edge here and getting rid of it. In faux painting or in creating these sort of patinas, it's about making sure that you haven't inadvertently, in the stamping technique, in the tapping technique, created pattern. Once this feels like what I'm looking for in an old piece of metallic copper, then I can create my final and favorite bit, which is the gold highlight. Now I'm going to move to a clean sponge. I'll use this little small one here. I'm going to, as I like to get them wet, clean water, clean sponge. Very wet, but then take the extra, and on this one I might even squeeze it into a towel just to make sure that there's not too much moisture on there. The slight moisture softens the sea sponges. And I'm going to stamp up and down into my gold, the sponge, so that I'm already making sure I don't have clumps of pigment that I don't want. And I'm going to make very soft. This is going to be like a kiss. I just barely touched this canvas. I want just the highest parts of the canvas to catch the highest parts of the sponge where the metal is going to come up. This is such a subtle effect. You can literally do so much when you master this. It can take a couple times. So be patient with yourself. It's not that it's hard, and it's not that you have to be like a total painting expert to do it. It just takes a little bit for your brain and hand to start working together to make these incredible, intense effects. Look at this come together. So I'm doing the same thing Just soft, soft, soft. I don't want to press in hard. I'm going to press in softly. That's the trick here, guys. Turn that canvas because we don't want to make patterns that we don't mean to have. And I don't want to take away everything. I just want some areas where this high metal is showing, right? Think about old metal. Look at pictures if you need. Okay, I'm doing a swirl here, swirling around. I'm tapping down, moving and angling my sponge back and forth, and I'm going to just, maybe this corner has a bit coming up here, and it is a lot of fun to create this. This works on lots of different things if you needed to make something that wasn't aged metal look like aged metal, right? Almost done. You're just going to take this to where you like it, where it makes you happy. You're going to go right there. Got a little bit of a pattern going. There you go. How is that? Do we feel like we're looking at some gorgeous piece of copper that has sat outside and weathered? It's so fun to turn these. Be sure and wash your sponges out right away so you can use them again and again. And wash your hands right away if you didn't wear rubber gloves. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you apply this to many of the projects that I have on the channel and to your own projects at home. And I hope you found this kind of background painting sort of interesting. Take care of yourselves, be good to each other, and I want to see you at the easel really soon. All right, bye-bye.